So I don't know, I'm going to use the an analogy of a kitten. So, you've probably seen a little kitten, who it's terribly needy. It just won't leave you alone. It's I mean, a slightly more extreme example would be a dog that had been beaten, and you go up to stroke the dog and it bites your hand. Or a little kitten, I was trying to explain, that didn't receive the right nurturing, and so it just completely is always trying to nurture you and get to you because it didn't get enough love. Now, this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's not an exaggeration, actually. It's just I'm using the example of an animal rather than a human being. So how do we leave these toxic relationships? I want to look at the process of leaving the relationship, but I also actually want to look at some of the signs that you can look out for so as not to go back into a toxic relationship again. However, I am very, very much in favor of this not just being an intellectual process, because we're dealing with emotions here, which are actually held in the body, held at a cellular level in the body. And as we go through the feelings of withdrawal from the toxic relationship, if we properly go through those feelings, then we actually are able to release a lot of the toxicity and actually mature from it, so that our vibration actually changes. So what you have to do is to actually go through the feelings, that the feelings of grief, the feelings of anger, the feelings of frustration, the feelings of loss, the feelings of sadness, all the feelings that come up when you leave a toxic relationship. Having said that, this is the good news, folks. If you get the right support while you are going through this, you can move through it very quickly. And I really want you to hear this. I'm telling you because it's the truth. And, I can give you one example from my own history. And so I actually got to experience a lot of relationships myself. And that's a lot of what I draw on when I am helping people in their relationships. One of the things you need to do in your relationship that you're leaving now is you need to take a really good cold look back at it, so that you really learn what you need to from it. And sometimes that is hard to do alone. And that's why I'm telling you this story. So this relationship didn't work out for me. And I think we were together it was only short, about 6 months, but the length of time actually doesn't necessarily matter. It's the depth of the feelings. I was absolutely heartbroken. I was in bits. I remember it was at Christmas time, and I literally sat in one chair for 3 weeks and cried. I mean, that is how bad I was. For 3 weeks, just sat and wept and went every day. And luckily, I had a friend who I was able to confide in. And this is where I think having a concept of a higher power, you can call it God, you can call it infinite intelligence, but I was at that point where I was like, please, universe, guide me, help me here. I don't know how to do this. It wasn't only that the loss of that relationship, it was the loss of the other relationships that I'd had that hadn't worked out, because by that time I was in my early 30s, I think. No, a bit later, actually, maybe my mid-30s. And so my friend, who I confided in, said, you know what, Lorraine, he said, I've got a friend and she's a counselor. And it just so happened that she was running a group right near where I lived. That was higher power. That was my higher power, gave me this, because if it had been the other side of London, I probably wouldn't have gone. So I went along to this group, and as soon as I joined this group, this was a counselor who was really good. She was really good at what she did, and later actually became a really good friend of mine. But it completely transformed it for me, folks. You know, it suddenly, I was not the only person who was going through this. I know that there's loads more people who are going through toxic relationships and withdrawing from them. And, you know, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have been in toxic relationships. So being able to share what's going on for you makes such a huge difference. Now, guys, I need you to listen to this particularly, because I do get a lot of men who come to me for help, and it's really hard for men to go to a group and to be vulnerable. Really, really hard, because that's not traditionally what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be the one who's together. You know, it's not, for a man to be weeping and in bits, that because the relationship hasn't worked out. That's so hard, because you're supposed to be the strong ones. And yet, you know what? If you can find it within your hearts to be able to get help and allow people close to you, in confidence, the right people, it has to be totally, you have to feel totally safe and so totally right about it. It can make such a massive difference and speed up the healing process so dramatically. I had done at this time I'm telling you this story about myself, I had done tons of therapy. I'd done tons of one-to-one therapy. I don't know how many therapists I'd had over how many years, and I was still in bits. And yet when I went to this group, I suddenly, well, I suppose it was what it is actually, it was a family. It was a healthy family, because you're asking me where to find a great therapy group. Here, I run them. Which I'm telling you because it makes such a difference to have a well-facilitated. You see, you have to have a well-facilitated group. The parents, inverted commas, have to be good, solid parents. They have to be able to keep the family, the people who attend the group, in good order. Because a lot of us, and I'm one of those people, didn't get, for whatever reason, the parenting that we needed to get us through those developmental stages that I talked about at the beginning, to be able to recognize, choose a happy, healthy relationship. Now, every relationship is going to have its challenge. There's no relationship that doesn't. And part of becoming a mature person is being able to ride those things. But when you've picked somebody who is a really toxic person, or you've got two people who can't negotiate, who don't know how to communicate, then the relationship can implode and become very toxic.